We reviewed the literature from organizational behavior, political science, strategic management, and related areas such as social psychology to categorize and develop a framework to capture the many ways that leaders become involved in conflict in the work group. Through our review of the literature, we found that leaders are involved in conflict through three different ways. The first way being instigating conflict, meaning that they can actually start or initiate conflict in the work group. And typically in this area, we focus on unintentional and intentional instigation of conflict. The second way that leaders become involved in conflict is through engaging in conflict. In this section, we found that leaders become engaged in conflict through three different ways or three different categories. The first being an active engager, so they're actively engaged in the conflict or escalating the conflict. In the second way we found was that leaders actually become entangled in conflict, meaning that they're dragged into the conflict because of some affiliation with the group members that are in conflict. The third way that leaders become engaged in conflict is through being a strategic observer, meaning that they are sort of passive in their engagement because they don't see a potential benefit for themselves to become actively engaged. However, they're still observing the conflict to see how it might actually benefit them. So in a sense, they're benefiting from keeping two parties in conflict without being engaged in the conflict actively. The final category of our review framework is on leaders and how they manage conflict. In particular, we look at a majority of the research is on conflict handling styles, so how they handle conflict, but we also incorporate research from conflict resolution, meaning that we look at how they become negotiators or how they become mediators in conflict as well. A couple of themes that came up and also areas that we want to see more research in are on things such as, for instance, the interrelationships between each of these dimensions. A lot of the research we found only created snapshots of each of these behaviors, but we know that they can be dynamic and they could be related to each other. And the paper will tell you a little bit more about how we think those relationships will play out.